The skies above Earth darkened as the massive coalition ships entered orbit, their hulls gleaming against the backdrop of stars. Humanity had barely established colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, a fledgling spacefaring civilization still confined to its solar system. The first ships appeared on a Tuesday morning. Most people thought they were a strange weather phenomenon until communications worldwide began broadcasting the same message. Attention humans, we come with urgent purpose. In Seoul, Hong held his daughter's hand tightly as they stared up at the massive shadows crossing the sun. "Dad, what are those?" she asked, but Hong had no answer. Within hours, the United Earth Council assembled in Geneva. Representatives from all nations gathered in stunned silence as the holographic image of Admiral Ta materialized before them. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall, with blue-tinted skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. "We require your assistance," announced Admiral Ta to the stunned council. "The Void Dominion threatens all sentient life. Our ancient laws permit us to enlist developing species in times of great need." Councillor Kim, representing the Pan-Asian Alliance, stood up from her seat. Her face flushed with anger as she confronted the alien projection. "You cannot simply arrive and demand our people serve in your war." "We do not demand," Admiral Tay replied coldly. "We take." The transmission ended abruptly. Minutes later, smaller craft began descending toward major cities across the planet. In military bases worldwide, soldiers prepared for a fight they couldn't possibly win. Colonel Back ordered his squadron to defensive positions as 3 alien ships hovered over their base in Busan. "Hold your fire unless I command it," he ordered, knowing that resistance might mean total destruction. The ships deployed what looked like mist, a paralytic agent that rendered most of the soldiers unconscious within seconds. Within days, similar scenes played out across Earth. Coalition forces descended on major population centers. Their technology easily overcame human defenses. Millions of humans, soldiers, engineers, scientists were loaded onto massive transport ships. The aliens selected for physical fitness, technical knowledge, and military experience, taking Earth's best and brightest. Families were torn apart. On a collection field in what was once Incheon Park, Young held his wife's hand one last time before being forced up a boarding ramp. "I'll find you," he promised, though neither believed it possible. The coalition processed humans efficiently. They implanted translation devices and assigned designations instead of names. Lieutenant Park became Human Asset 42,997. He was herded with 500 others into a holding bay on Processing Ship 7, a vessel larger than any human-made structure. The aliens spoke around the humans as if they couldn't understand, even with the translators. Park listened carefully as 2 coalition officers discussed deployment plans. "The human units will serve as frontline buffers in the Orion sector," said one, a tall insectoid being. "Their primitive weapons experience makes them suitable for basic ground operations." "And what of casualties?" asked the other. "Acceptable. This species reproduces quickly. We can return for more if needed." The aliens expected compliant cannon fodder, primitives who would absorb enemy fire, while coalition forces executed the real strategies. They didn't bother with extensive security around the humans, considering them too simple to pose any threat. In the corner of the holding bay, Park spotted Captain Lee, who had commanded a special forces unit in Korea. Their eyes met briefly. Lee nodded slightly, a signal they had used during joint operations. Park returned the gesture and then moved casually toward another group of former soldiers. Over the next several hours, Park, Lee, and other military personnel quietly spread through the human population on the ship. They made mental notes of guard rotations, door mechanisms, weapon placements. Former engineers studied the visible technology, whispering observations about power systems and control interfaces. "They've given us translation implants," whispered Naval Engineer Jin to Park. "I can read some of their control panels. Basic command functions are similar to logical patterns we use." Captain Lee gathered the growing network of resistance leaders in what appeared to be a blind spot in the ship's surveillance. "They think we're simple creatures," he said quietly, "that will just follow orders and die for their cause." "We need to play along," Park suggested. "Learn their technology, their tactics, find their weaknesses." A former quantum physicist named Sue nodded in agreement. "They're technologically advanced, but I've noticed inefficiencies in their energy systems. Given time, we might be able to exploit them." As Processing Ship 7 prepared to leave Earth's orbit, the humans continued their quiet organization. The aliens had expected to collect frightened primitives. Instead, they had gathered the most resourceful, adaptive species in the galaxy. Looking out a viewport at Earth growing smaller in the distance, Lieutenant Park made a silent promise. They would return home someday. The aliens had made their first mistake, and it would not be their last. 6 months into the conscription, Coalition Commander Dole stared at the battle report in disbelief. His four-fingered hand trembled slightly as he reviewed the footage for the third time. The scene showed Human Squad 329, positioned at Outpost Krell 7, facing an elite void force that outnumbered them 5-1. Instead of being quickly overrun as expected, the humans had not only survived, but completely defeated the attack force. "Explain how Human Squad 329 repelled an elite void force with modified coalition weapons," Commander Dole demanded, his scaled skin flushing a dark purple with agitation. His aide, Officer Min, shifted uncomfortably beside him. "They altered our standard particle rifles, sir. Improved them. Improved coalition technology." Dole's voice rose. "That's impossible. Show me." Min pulled up technical schematics. Human Jun, their squad technician, reconfigured the thermal sinks and adjusted the energy modulators. The rifles now fire 40% more rapidly and overheat at a much lower rate. Commander Dole leaned closer to the display. Coalition weapons technology had remained largely unchanged for 3 centuries. The idea that primitives from a backwater world could improve it in mere months was disturbing. "Is this an isolated incident?" he asked. "No, sir," Min replied. "Similar reports are coming in from across coalition forces. Across the stars, humans were proving unexpectedly troublesome and valuable." In Sector 4, Engineer Choi had been assigned to a damaged battleship, the Glory of Kaldar. After coalition engineers declared the vessel lost due to a ruptured power core, Choi had requested permission to try something different. Captain Gill of the Glory of Kaldar now stood before Admiral Tide, explaining what had happened. "The human reconfigured our power grid," Jill explained. "She bypassed the damaged sections and rerouted emergency power through maintenance systems. The ship not only survived but remained combat capable." "Did your engineers approve this procedure?" Admiral Tai asked. "They said it was impossible," Jill replied, "that it violated fundamental principles of our technology. Yet she did it anyway." Meanwhile, near the Void border, a stealth mission had yielded surprising results. Major Han, formerly of Earth's Korean Special Forces, had requested permission to lead a small team against Void outposts that had been harassing coalition supply lines. Commander UK had reluctantly approved, expecting little success. Instead, Han's team had executed a midnight raid that disabled 3 enemy outposts in succession. They used tactics the coalition considered dishonorable, cutting power before attacking, striking from multiple directions simultaneously, and targeting communication systems first. "These are not the actions of honorable warriors," complained General Bo during the command review. "They attack from shadows, without formal challenge." "Yet they succeeded where our forces failed 6 times, countered his colleague. At Coalition High Command Headquarters, Admiral Ryu studied multiple reports flowing in from across the front lines. Human innovations were appearing everywhere: modified weapons, unorthodox tactics, improvised repairs, and adaptations to coalition technology that no one had considered possible. "Show me the Sector 12 engagement again," Ryu ordered. The holographic display activated, showing a squad of humans pinned down by void forces. Instead of retreating or fighting to the death as expected, the humans had used their environment creatively. They'd redirected a nearby coolant pipe, creating a steam cloud for cover. Then they used coalition sonic tools, designed for mining, as disruptive weapons to confuse void sensors. These humans, Admiral Rio muttered as he watched footage of humans fighting with desperate innovation, they're not what we expected. His second-in-command, Admiral Jian, nodded grimly. No, he agreed. They're dangerous. Perhaps we should separate them, suggested another officer. Distribute them more thinly among our forces to reduce their influence. Admiral Ryu shook his head. Too late for that. Reports indicate they're forming connections across different ships and battalions. They've established their own informal command structure. He pointed to communication logs showing messages passed between human units. How are they coordinating? Jian asked. We control all communication channels. They're using our systems in ways we didn't anticipate, Ryo explained. Embedding messages within standard reports, using maintenance channels, even modifications to supply requisitions as a form of code. In the lower decks of Ryu's own command ship, those very humans were meeting in secret. Lieutenant Park, now a squad leader, shared information with representatives from 12 other human units via a modified maintenance terminal. The Coalition still thinks we're just following orders, he told them. But we've positioned our people throughout their fleet now. Engineers, tacticians, communication specialists. We have eyes and ears everywhere. Captain Lee, recently promoted due to his successful defense of a Coalition mining facility, agreed. We need to keep playing their game for now. Learn everything we can, build our network. And then, asked a former civilian scientist named Yun. Then we negotiate, Lee said firmly. Not as conscripts, but as equals. And if they refuse, he paused, looking at each determined face around him, then we take what we need to get home. As the meeting concluded, a Coalition patrol passed nearby. The humans quickly dispersed, returning to their assigned duties. To casual observation, they appeared to be model soldiers in the Coalition forces. But beneath their compliance, a revolution was brewing, one built on human adaptability, ingenuity, and unbreakable determination. 1 year after Earth's conscription, Colonel Sun stood before the Coalition War Council. The grand chamber, designed to impress with its towering crystal columns and hovering light displays, fell silent as she stepped to the central platform. Her uniform bore human military insignia alongside alien symbols, a modification no other conscripted species had dared to make. 12 alien generals watched her with mixed expressions. Some showed curiosity, others barely concealed contempt. Supreme Commander Vel, a tall being with iridescent scales, nodded for her to begin. The Void Dominion controls this entire sector, Colonel Sun explained, activating the holographic display with a gesture. The star map glowed blue, with red areas showing enemy territory. For 3 years, your forces have attempted direct assaults on their key positions. Each attempt has failed with heavy losses. She zoomed in on a particular star system. The Void Dominion expects us to attack from space again. Their orbital defenses are prepared for this, but we won't do what they expect. We'll insert ground forces here. She pointed to a small moon, targeting their command structure while their fleet engages our decoys. The alien generals shifted uncomfortably. General Mun, a veteran of 200 battles, raised a clawed hand. This violates traditional battle protocols, he objected. Honorable combat begins with formal space engagement, followed by. Traditional protocols have lost you half the galaxy, Sun replied coolly. The chamber fell silent. Such directness was uncommon in Coalition meetings, where status and rank determined who could speak. Commander Vel studied Sun for a long moment. Explain your plan in detail, Colonel. Sun outlined a strategy unlike anything the Coalition had tried. Small stealth ships would slip past void defenses during a flashy but limited frontal assault. Human-led ground teams would infiltrate the command center using techniques developed on Earth for urban warfare. Meanwhile, the main coalition fleet would appear to retreat, only to return once the Void command structure was compromised. Your warriors would need to fight in close quarters, noted General Munn. The Void forces are physically superior. We've been smaller and weaker than our enemies before, Sun replied with a slight smile. Humans have developed ways to overcome such disadvantages. After hours of debate, Commander Vell made an unprecedented decision. Colonel Sun will lead this operation. All requested resources will be provided. 3 weeks later, the battle for the Proxima system began. The Coalition's main fleet engaged Void forces exactly as they had in previous battles. The Void commanders anticipated another victory, pushing their ships forward aggressively. Meanwhile, 20 stealth vessels slipped through the chaos of battle. On board, human soldiers like Sergeant Kang prepared for ground assault. His team carried modified coalition weapons and wore lightweight armor designed by human engineers to allow greater mobility. Remember your training, he told his mixed squad of humans and coalition soldiers. Speed and surprise. Hit them where they don't expect it. When the ground teams landed, they moved with a coordination that surprised their alien allies. Humans had been training coalition species in Earth military tactics for months. Now those lessons were put into action. In the Void Command Center, alien leaders were confused by alerts coming from within their supposedly secure facility. By the time they understood what was happening, human-led teams had already secured key systems and communications arrays. Colonel Sun, leading the central assault team, personally captured the Void commander. As the battle ended, the coalition had secured its first major victory in decades. News spread quickly throughout coalition forces. The effectiveness of human tactics could not be denied. Within weeks, humans were elevated to command positions throughout the fleet. Colonel Sun was promoted to general, the first human to hold such high rank. A distinct human chain of command emerged, parallel to but increasingly more respected than the official coalition hierarchy. Coalition soldiers began requesting transfers to human-led units, seeing them as the path to survival and victory. On Coalition's Central Command, Admiral Ryu watched these developments with growing concern. The humans have become too influential, he told his advisors. Their place was as auxiliary forces, not leadership. Their methods are effective, one advisor pointed out. The Void has lost 3 major systems since General Sun's strategy was implemented. Effectiveness is not the only concern, Ryu replied. These humans maintain their own loyalties. They communicate among themselves, share information outside proper channels. They are becoming a separate power within our forces. Far from the Coalition Command, on Jupiter's moon Europa, a different meeting was taking place. Earth's remaining government officials gathered in a secure underground facility. Through tremendous effort, they had established encrypted communications with human forces scattered throughout coalition ranks. President Hai addressed the assembled leaders. Today marks a turning point. Our people in the coalition have gained influence and access to advanced technology. General Sun and other officers have begun the next phase. On a secure channel, General Sun's face appeared. Operation Homecoming is now active, she reported. We are placing human operators in key positions throughout the coalition fleet. We're learning their FTL drive technology, weapon systems, and navigation data. And if they discover our intentions, asked a concerned minister. They need us now, Sun replied confidently. The coalition cannot defeat the Void without human tactics and leadership. That gives us leverage. President Han nodded solemnly. Then we proceed as planned. First, we ensure the Void threat is contained. Then we negotiate Earth's freedom and return of our people. And if negotiation fails, General Sun finished, we'll have positioned ourselves to take what's ours by force if necessary. As the meeting concluded, Operation Homecoming was quietly initiated. Across thousands of coalition ships, humans began their careful work, fighting the Void while preparing for the day they would either return home as allies of the coalition or take their freedom with the very weapons and ships they'd been forced to use. Supreme Commander Vel paced the length of the Coalition war room, his tall frame casting long shadows across the strategic displays. 2 years of fighting alongside humans had yielded unprecedented victories against the Void Dominion, but at a cost Vel and the Coalition High Command now found unacceptable. They no longer behave as auxiliaries, he told the assembled commanders. They question orders. They modify plans. They communicate among themselves outside proper channels. Admiral Munn, who had initially opposed human tactics, now seemed hesitant. Their methods have proven effective. We've reclaimed 17 systems in the past 8 months alone. At what cost to our traditions? Vel countered. They have no respect for proper battle protocols. Their influence spreads like a virus among our ranks. Even our own soldiers begin to adopt their ways. He pulled up a series of reports on the central display. Human officers now commanded nearly 30% of Coalition combat units. In efficiency ratings, these units consistently outperformed traditional forces. More troubling to Vel, many Coalition species had begun requesting transfers to human-led teams. We must act now, before they become too entrenched, Vel declared. Separate the human units. Distribute them thinly throughout our forces. Break their chain of command. The order went out that same day. Throughout Coalition territory, commanders received instructions to immediately reorganize their forces. Human officers would be demoted. Human-led units would be disbanded. Coalition species would resume proper command roles. On the battlecruiser Relentless Victory, Commander Dak received the order with concern. His ship operated under a mixed command structure, with human officer Jin leading the tactical division. Under Jin's guidance, the Relentless had survived 3 major engagements that should have destroyed them. You want me to remove Officer Jin from tactical command? Dak asked his superior via secure channel. Those are your orders, came the reply. All ships must comply immediately. Dak ended the transmission and sat quietly for a moment. Then he did something unprecedented. He went to speak with Jin directly. They want me to remove you from command, he said bluntly. High Command fears human influence. Jin nodded, unsurprised. And what will you do, Commander? I've served for 18 cycles, Dak replied. I've watched countless ships and crews lost to the void under traditional command. Under your tactics, we've survived impossible odds. He paused. I cannot follow these orders. Similar conversations happened across hundreds of ships. 2 years of fighting alongside humans had changed many Coalition soldiers. When the orders came to disband human-led units, entire battle groups refused. On the Dreadnought Final Dawn, a Coalition officer attempted to forcibly remove Captain Park from the bridge. The ship's crew, a mix of 3 different Coalition species and humans, blocked his path. Captain Park stays, said Officer Leck, a veteran Coalition warrior. His leadership has earned our loyalty. As reports of resistance flooded in, Commander Vel ordered Coalition loyalists to arrest human officers by force if necessary. The first shots were fired on Orbital Station Krell 9, when security forces attempted to detain human General Yoon. Her Coalition allies intervened. 3 died in the fighting before Yoon's forces secured the station. On the Coalition flagship Eternal Triumph, General Sun received reports of the escalating situation. For months, she had prepared for this possibility. The human network, Operation Homecoming, had placed trusted operators on key vessels and installations throughout Coalition space. It's time, she told her staff, a mix of humans and allied Coalition officers. Activate all cells. Secure critical systems. General Sun accessed the secure channel that linked all human forces. Her face appeared on thousands of screens throughout Coalition territory. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady and determined. For 2 years, we have fought and died for the Coalition's war. We turned the tide against the Void Dominion. Our reward was to be separation and continued servitude. She stood straighter, her modified uniform displaying both human and Coalition insignia. Today, We form the Human Liberation Force. We fight not just against the void, but for our freedom. To our coalition allies who have stood by us, we offer friendship and continued cooperation. To those who seek to oppress us, we offer one chance to stand down. Across coalition space, the response was immediate and dramatic. Human-led forces moved to secure their positions. Many coalition crews, having fought alongside humans and seen their effectiveness, declared support for the Human Liberation Force. On the heavy cruiser Relentless Justice, Captain Nim addressed his coalition crew. "I stand with General Sun. Anyone who wishes to leave may do so without consequence." Not a single crew member departed. Coalition ships turned against one another as alien crews chose sides. Human loyal forces seized control of 7 major fleets within days. Key shipyards, supply depots, and strategic installations fell to the Liberation Force with minimal resistance. Many coalition soldiers, especially those who had fought directly alongside humans, refused to fire on their former comrades. Commander Vel watched in horror as his forces disintegrated. Reports showed nearly 40% of the coalition fleet now aligned with the humans. Another 20% refused to take sides, effectively removing themselves from his command. "This is unprecedented," Admiral Pond stated, her voice trembling. "No auxiliary species has ever mounted such a rebellion." "No auxiliary species was ever like the humans," replied Admiral Tai, who had led the original conscription of Earth. "I warned this might happen." The Void Dominion, sensing opportunity in the chaos, launched a major offensive against 3 border systems. Coalition defenses, divided and disorganized, began to crumble. Faced with fighting both humans and the Void Dominion, the Coalition Supreme Council convened an emergency session. The ancient meeting chamber, with seats for every major species, was half empty. Many representatives had already sided with the humans. Supreme Commander Vel addressed the diminished council. "We must crush this rebellion immediately. Deploy the reserve fleets. Target human command ships first." Admiral Tay, now older and wiser, rose from his seat. "The reserve fleets would be insufficient. Human-led forces have superior tactical coordination, and many of our own people will not fight against them." He activated a display showing the current military situation. Red indicators showed void advances. Blue showed coalition-loyal forces. Green indicated human-controlled or human-allied ships. "We cannot win a two-front war," he admitted. "We must negotiate with the humans." Commander Vel's scales darkened with anger. "Negotiate? With conscripted auxiliaries? Impossible." "The alternative," Admiral Ta said quietly, "is defeat. The void will destroy us all while we fight among ourselves." As the council debated, General Sun prepared her forces for the next phase. The Human Liberation Force was ready to fight for their freedom, but she hoped the coalition would see reason. Either way, humanity would never be anyone's auxiliary again. The new Galactic Council chamber gleamed with light from 3 suns streaming through crystal windows. Representatives from 100 species waited in the circular hall, their conversations creating a buzz of different languages and tones. This meeting would change the course of galactic history. The main doors slid open. General Sun entered, flanked by both human officers and allied coalition commanders. The chamber fell silent. Many representatives shifted uncomfortably as Sun walked to the center of the room. Just 3 years ago, humans had been nothing but conscripted cannon fodder. Now, a human stood before them as an equal power broker. "The terms of our agreement are simple," General Sun said, her voice carrying through the perfect acoustics. "The Human Liberation Force will rejoin the fight against the Void Dominion on 3 conditions." She held up one finger. "First, all conscripted species must be freed and given full rights." A second finger joined the first. "Second, Earth receives a permanent seat on this council, with equal status to founding members." A third finger rose. "Finally, the laws allowing forced conscription of developing species will be permanently abolished." Former Supreme Commander Vel, his scales now dull with age and stress, rose from his seat. "These demands are unprecedented. The Galactic Coalition has existed for thousands of years with these traditions. And for the last century, you've been losing to the Void, replied Sun. You need us more than we need you. The Human Liberation Force controls nearly half your military assets. We can defeat the Void with or without your blessing. Admiral Tai, who had led the original mission to conscript humans, stepped forward. General Sun speaks truth. Our choice is simple: adapt or perish. I move to accept these terms. After 3 days of heated debate, the vote finally came. By a narrow margin, the Galactic Council accepted humanity's conditions. 2 weeks later, the reorganized council reconvened. The former coalition leader stood at the central podium, his voice solemn as he announced, "The conscription laws are hereby abolished. All forcibly enlisted species are granted independence and council representation." Representatives from 27 formerly conscripted races took new seats in the chamber. Earth's representative, President Ha, nodded to General Sun, who watched from a side gallery. Their gamble had worked. With the political settlement complete, attention turned back to the war. Human military leaders took key positions throughout the combined fleet, now called the Galactic Alliance. General Sun personally oversaw the strategic planning for what they hoped would be the final offensive against the Void Dominion. Their forces expect us to be divided, she explained to the combined command staff. Instead, we'll present a united frontier. She pointed to a major Void stronghold, while our real attack comes from 3 unexpected vectors. The plan involved tactics no coalition commander would have considered: feigned retreats, sacrificing territory to gain position, and irregular warfare behind enemy lines. Many traditional officers objected, but the evidence of human tactical success was now undeniable. 6 months later, the combined forces of the new Galactic Alliance, led by human strategists, delivered the final blow to the Void Dominion. The decisive battle occurred at the Void Central Command World, where specialized human-led teams disabled the Dominion's unique hive mind communication system. Without central coordination, the Void forces fell into disarray and were systematically defeated. Centuries of war ended in less than 3 years after humanity's involvement. The celebration spanned thousands of worlds, with humans suddenly finding themselves honored as saviors rather than conscripted servants. On Earth, millions of families welcomed home those who had been taken. Lieutenant Park, now Colonel Park, stepped off a transport ship in Seoul and embraced his parents, who had never expected to see their son again. "You've changed," his mother said, noting his confident bearing and the alien symbols of rank on his uniform. "We all have," Park replied. "The galaxy has too." As reconstruction began across former battlefields, many worlds that had once been part of the coalition requested human advisors and protection. The Human Defense Force, formed from elements of the Liberation Force, established bases on strategic planets throughout Allied space. Earth's technology advanced rapidly as humans adapted and improved upon alien designs. At the victory celebration on the new Alliance capital world, Admiral Tai approached General Sun. The blue-skinned alien, who had once commanded the conscription of her people, offered a formal vow. "We came to your world expecting primitives," Admiral Tai told General Sun, genuine respect in his voice. "Instead, we found the most formidable species in the galaxy." Sun smiled. "Remember that the next time you consider conscripting lesser species, humanity will never allow itself to be subjugated again, but we offer partnership to all who treat us as equals." A lesson learned at great cost, Tai acknowledged, but perhaps a necessary one. The coalition had grown complacent, hidebound by tradition. "Your people brought change we didn't know we needed." Across the galaxy, humans and aliens began building something better than the coalition had ever achieved. A true alliance of equals. Former enemies became trading partners. Cultural exchanges flourished. Technological progress accelerated as different approaches combined to solve long-standing problems. On the 10-year anniversary of First Contact, Colonel Park stood with his family on a hill overlooking Seoul. His daughter, born after his return, pointed excitedly at an alien visitor walking down the street below. Now a common sight on Earth. "Will you tell me the story again?" she asked, "about how humans changed the galaxy." Park smiled, watching ships from a dozen worlds moving through Earth's skies, not as conquerors or conscriptors, but as partners and friends. "It's not just about how we changed the galaxy," he told her. "It's about how we all changed together. Sometimes, the universe teaches its lessons in strange ways." Above them, the stars shone brightly, no longer distant and unreachable, but the backdrop for humanity's new home among equals in a galaxy forever transformed by an invasion that had backfired. The end.